So today on Inside Video Games, I believe that's what I named the series, I'm going to be going over the mechanics of sprinting and aiming down sights in a lot of modern games, especially shooters, and how they can actually be harmful to the gameplay. You're probably thinking, Fruit, what are you talking about? Sprint just speeds up the game, you know? Aiming down sights just makes you more accurate. If they're harmful, then why would they be in every single game? Well, I'm going to explain this today and also give my own opinions on it. But before we get into new games or modern games with those functions, let's start off with where shooters originated from. So, classic games generally had one base movement speed without sprint. These games would include Quake and Unreal Tournament and many, many more. However, the original Doom from 1994 differed, because Doom had a run mechanic, allowing you to move at nearly double your regular speed just by holding down the run button. The run mechanic was really only there so that way you could turn it off in case you needed to get through a tight corridor or make sure you didn't fall off a ledge if you were new to the game. But this run mechanic has two major differences from the sprint that we're all familiar with. Difference 1, it's omnidirectional. Omnidirectional, as opposed to monodirectional, means the speed boost affects movement speed in all directions, encouraging strafing and circling your enemies as opposed to simply using it to get from point A to point B in a straight line. Difference 2. Sprint causes the player character to put down their weapon, therefore at least partially separating movement from combat. Classic shooters also didn't have an aim down sights function either. To the wild surprise of many Zoomers such as my little brother, a lack of aiming down sights does not mean that every weapon in the entire game will be wildly inaccurate. Instead, what classic shooters opted for was simply having the weapons maintain full accuracy even when firing from the hip, and moving at full speed. It's not that aiming down sights wasn't an option. It's not like playing Call of Duty without being able to hold down the left trigger. It's like being able to play Call of Duty but there's no need to hold down the left trigger, you know? So, why was Sprint Part 2? Why was Sprint created? To be frankly honest, console controllers can't handle old school shooters. They're simply too fast, and no human in their right mind will want to play them with joysticks. Before Halo, the only first-person shooter games on console were Rare's GoldenEye 007 and Perfect Dark from the Nintendo 64. Both of those titles utilized a single joystick on the Nintendo 64 controller, of which it only had one, and used the D-pad for aiming. No. I'm not fucking you. You had to use the D-pad for aiming. To help assist players in the process of aiming, the reticle would actively move across your screen with a heavy hard-lock auto-aim system that made the games more playable at the time. Additionally, the games were also much slower than PC shooters at the time to also allow for controller players to have a better experience. But then the world hit November 15th, 2001, and one of the greatest and most influential games in all gaming history was released, Halo Combat Evolved. This is the first Halo game. Halo invented modern softlock aim assist, as well as the dual joystick control scheme seen in all modern shooters. Halo was much slower than popular PC shooters at the time, such as Quake and Unreal Tournament, but console players wanted fast-paced action. In 2007, the original Modern Warfare gave it a shot, and it was quite successful. With the implementation of a sprint mechanic, players were able to move fast when out of combat and feel powerful and cool, but they would be forced to slow down significantly during combat, making the gameplay considerably more friendly to controllers. It was quite a clever idea and received very positively at the time, although Call of Duty didn't exactly invent sprint, but simply popularized it. So essentially what Sprint does is it allows for fast-paced movement, but doesn't allow it during combat, which makes the combat playable for controller while also being able to have fast-paced movement in between. Part 3, Modern Games. If you're a fan of the aforementioned Call of Duty or perhaps Battlefield, then you're probably used to running in a straight line until you see an enemy, stopping dead in your tracks, aiming down sights, then firing at them. They'll likely die quite quickly, and the encounter will have ended. That's it. That's your combat. There's nothing dynamic occurring, very little jumping and strafing to avoid incoming fire, as that negatively affects your accuracy and is much harder to do while aiming down sights. No chasing down an opponent while fighting, because you can't shoot at them while you're chasing them down because you need to keep sprinting. Keep up with them. So that's just kind of there, you know. Part 4. The harm they cause. Camping is a highly effective strategy in these games, since lying down on the floor, ADS, puts you in a position where you are ready for combat. When you're sprinting, non-aiming down sight's opponent isn't. With the addition of a low time to kill, it can become near impossible to turn the fight around against a person who shot first. Oftentimes when I die to a camper in Call of Duty, my only thought is, wow, look at how skilled that player is. He's clearly the better player and deserved the kill. Not. He didn't beat me fair and square. He sat in a position where he could be prepared, and I was moving and I wasn't prepared, therefore. It's clear to anyone with a brain that they won the fight because they weren't participating in the game as intended. If Call of Duty had intended for everyone to camp, then nobody would ever come out of cover and every game would end with a 0-0 score. Call of Duty wants players to run and gun, but foolishly implements mechanics that heavily discourage this behavior. Now I'm going to talk about one of my favorite shooters ever, and arguably one of the best games of all time, Halo 3. In Halo 3, you may be traversing the map to find enemies and claim power weapons, and when you come across an enemy player, let's say you come across an enemy player, while moving towards, away, or parallel to the enemy, you will fire your gun and throw grenades to deal damage. You'll be jumping and strafing, trying to dodge or avoid projectiles at full speed in every direction. You can engage in combat at full efficiency while flanking across the map to obtain a rocket launcher or energy sword. The game has turned into a contest of who has more skill within the flow of the game's combat and who can out-aim, out-strafe, and outsmart their opponent. Camping is not a viable strategy because it doesn't give you a jump on your opponent. Your opponent, who is traversing the map at full speed, is just as prepared to engage this combat as you are. In fact, they'll be more difficult to hit due to being a moving target. Sitting in a corner and waiting for people to walk into your sightlines isn't going to cut it. You have to outplay them, you have to be the better player. Similarly to Call of Duty, Halo 3 wants its players to run and gun, but unlike Call of Duty, Halo 3 is incredibly successful with this, because it avoids abilities such as sprint and aim down sights that actively and strongly hinder players' combat potential during movement. Alright guys, that was the video. Wow, that script took me a long time to make and I just read it out loud really quickly. If you like the video, please subscribe. I don't upload all too often, but I consistently upload videos I only upload videos that I'm truly proud of and I think deserve to be on the internet and on my channel. So you're gonna get nothing but high quality-ish, I guess, content like this. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you disliked it, leave a dislike.